Okay, this is the part two of the Fleetwood Flair driver area heat and sound barrier installation, which is on an F-53 Ford chassis. The driver area is known to get hot and be pretty noisy. And so what I've decided to do, as explained in part one, is address those issues as well as get some tile in here, which will make it a little easier to step in without tracking dirt onto carpets that then need to be cleaned. Just simply wash the tile. So I'll be putting tile in here as well. But in part one, I identified how I came up with these craft paper templates. Is I went ahead and took dimensions, transferred to the craft paper, and did some rough cuts, and then I brought it over here to the RV and went ahead and did some final trimming. I should point out, it's the craft paper, given those folds, you got to be careful that those will be somewhat contracted as they are now, and so you around the periphery may have some adjustments that need to be made based on that growth or shrinkage from those wrinkles in that template. So I've made certain notes around the periphery to get a good fit. It's good to have a reference point and then work from there. And I use these little map holders, and so you can see I've got a little piece added there with some notes on what I need to do to trim to give me some tolerance around the edge. And then I went ahead and went around the doghouse, and there's an actual 45 here that I will step down to the floor and leave the side treatment that I'll get into later on how I'm going to address that. But anyway, it's just a matter of carefully fit checking and making sure that everything is square. For me, I went off the leading edge here. As I mentioned in part one, at some point I will commit to a separation between the right panel and the left panel. I do have a line here. However, the center point here is at 4 feet. So it's 4 foot this way and obviously 4 foot that way. So for me to have a break here means I'd have to have a small little piece here. And I may just simply leave the clamshell for both sides to close right here. And like I mentioned, I'm going to put tile on top. So I'll have to, again, further address that. But I will have the separation with the two panels coming together here. So then the next step was to come up with a template for the doghouse. And I just simply line that up here and trimmed. I might want to take a little off this radius here, so I have a smooth matching track to the bottom. So when I put my material on the side, it looks integrated as one piece as possible. I decided I'm going to put the heat barrier on the side, and then I'm going to have some carpeting, and I will probably find a piece of Luan that I can shape around here. So what I'll have then is the heat sound barrier material here first. I'll have a piece of, thinking Luan. I'll have to wet it so it'll take this turn. And then I'll go ahead and apply some indoor-outdoor carpeting, which is fairly rigid. And that will, I think, make for a better appearance as opposed to trying to put tile around the edge. And it makes it more workable. Again, the idea is that this doghouse will be a separate component that comes out, just like doghouse underneath, which comes out. This will go in and lay in over. Perhaps I'll put some Velcro up front to hold it in place. And this will be plywood. These will be plywood with the barrier underneath, as well then tile on top of those surfaces. and carpet around the periphery of the doghouse. Okay, so I went ahead and put a paper skirt around the doghouse top here, all the way around. Okay, so that finishes this part of the template making over here. Now, when I go ahead and take this apart, these are always the most difficult because there's so many angles. So what I will do is just cut along the edge of that paper, lay it out, and determine the shapes of the cut for the carpet, that luan that will be sandwiched between the carpet and the heat material insulation. Keep in mind that everything's going to grow here by the thickness of that 3/8 inch heat sound barrier. I always give a good inch excess in all of my peripheral cuts, so that I can then cut and trim once it's together. This will be a little more tricky, but I'll have some excellent templates on completion of this project. I would say this is, depending on your skill level, it's hard to give it a rating. I would say it's probably 7 or 8 in difficulty. It could be harder, maybe impossible for some, and piece of cake for others. It's somewhat of a physical effort. I'm not out of shape, but you're bending over, you're on your knees constantly trying to fit around getting the right dimensions and the fit on this stuff. So I may make these templates available for those interested, and but we'll see. We'll see how the finished project works. I'll do a decibel sound check on it before and after, and perhaps it works, perhaps it doesn't. Even if it doesn't, which I know that it will, I'll have this all tiled like this. So stepping here, stepping there on tile is much easier to clean than it is these carpets always laying around, getting underfoot, always dirty, looks like crap. But the tile will look good. And if nothing else, that's what I'm really trying to address here. And of course, the sound and heat treatment here obviously will improve the radiant heat coming up right in the driver area. So on to get the materials to fabricate.